Good morning, fuckers. It's time for that pre-trip inspection. Saturday morning. It's April 21st. How did I know that? Anyway, walking through the pre-trip inspection. This will be my free pre-trip inspection uploading on my channel involving how to pass your pre-trip inspection. Just little basic things that you point out to DOT while taking your test. You're always going to say that your nuts and bolts are properly secured, mounted and bolted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Alright, so you're going to say that all your nuts are properly secured, mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken. Then you're going to check all your hoses, make sure all your hoses are properly attached and secured. There are no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. That's what you want to say to the DOT officer, including all your hoses. This right here is your radiator hose. To your water pump here. And then you got your power steering pumps, your power steering lines. And the easiest way to find a power steering pump is to follow the power steering reservoir to the power steering pump. So here's the beat up Pitman arm power steering pump. Right here, Pitman arm, fucking lower bracket, whatever it is, I forgot the name of that one. And you got your leaf springs, your U-bolts. You gotta say that they're not cracked, bent, or broken. They're properly mounted and secured. You got your leaf springs, they're not shifted. You got your crossbar. You got your S-cam brakes. They have to be adjusted, specifically the 1 1/4 inch. There we go, my bad. 1 1/4 inch on your S-cam brakes. Your S-cam brakes right here. Your brake drums. Your brake drum line. Make sure they're not cracked, bent, or broken. These are important because they house the air that runs the truck. You want to check the inside of the wheels. You want to make sure that all the drums and the brake pads are evenly worn. Here's your fuel line, your fuel filter. Make sure that it's properly mounted and secured, not leaking, cracked, bent, or broken. Here's your oil. Here's your oil dipstick. You want to pull it out, check it, wipe it, clean it, dip it back in, pull it back out. Check your airline hoses. Make sure all your airlines are properly mounted and secured, have no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Your power steering rod. The power steering pumps over here. I forget what they call this fucking thing. Anyway, let's go to the other side. Oh yeah, you want to make sure that all your fluids or fills are proper. Minimum and maximum level. Between minimum and maximum, you want to make sure that you describe those items as well. Oil filter, your base frame, all your nuts and bolts are not cracked, bent, or broken, properly mounted and secured. You also, when you approach the truck, you want to look at the front of the truck and you want to point out to the top of the truck that there are 5 lights that are amber in color. Make sure you say that. And also make sure that you say that your truck is not shifted or leaning. If it's shifted or leaning, then there could be low air or bad spring mounts, bad joints, or whatever. Got to point out on the other side your shock springs, shock absorbers. This is your exhaust system, where your exhaust comes from. Here's your manifold intake. You want to make sure that there's no soot on those items. Any soot on the items and around the exhaust can cause serious defects inside the cab and put you to sleep. Your hoses here are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Here's your alternator and your starter. You want to make sure all the wirings are properly mounted and secured and they have no abrasions or cuts. They won't have no bubbles because there's no fluids that run through those items. Properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Make sure you point out your leaf springs and everything. Make sure you talk about your headlights. Make sure you talk about your signal lights, your 4-way flashers. Make sure you talk about your mirrors. Make sure you point out your windshield wipers and your windshield itself. And say that the windshield doesn't have no cracks in it. Properly mounted and secured and it's not leaking. yeah, those are some of the basic things underneath the hood that you want to point out for the DOT inspection. Then you're gonna move on after you do that. You're gonna point out your fuel tank. Your fuel tank. I'm gonna point out your fuel cap. Make sure your fuel cap is not missing. These are your air lines. These are your emergency brakes and your service brakes and your electrical lines. You want to point out your catwalk. Make sure it's clear. No obstruction. No ice or snow on those items. I hardly ever get up here anyway. Here's your mainframe. Here's your torque rod or whatever, your torque rod bar, cross member bar. Check your tires. Make sure all your tires are evenly worn. Make sure all the nuts and bolts are properly in place, properly secured and mounted. Make sure there's no rust around the bolts here. If there's any rust around the bolts, then it can mean that the tire is loose and not properly secured. You want to check inside the dualies. Make sure there's no debris inside the dualies. Here's your airbags. Here's your shock absorbers. Here's your fifth wheel pull pin. Here's your fifth wheel plate. When your fifth wheel plate's mounted, you also want to say that it's properly greased. You want to say that your fifth wheel is properly mounted and secured. All the nuts and bolts are properly attached, not cracked, bent, or broken. You also want to point out if you have the pins in the fifth wheel plate that slide the fifth wheel plate back and forth. You want to make sure that those are in place, not cracked, bent, or broken. I'm missing my fenders. I got a thing for that yesterday while I was picking up another trailer, and it was a low boy trailer, and my company decided to say, fuck this trailer, we're not hauling this shit. So they had me put it back, and I had to take off the fender wells as well in order to pull that trailer. That way when I turn, the trailer doesn't when the trailer pivots out, the trailer itself does not break the fenders, the mud flaps or mud flap containers. Also come to the other side, check the other tires the same way you did the other ones. Check in the middle, make sure all the dualies are, there's no debris in between those. Check your airbags. The airbags are down, there's no air in them. These here are your leaf springs, your rear leaf springs, your U-joints, they're properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Your hub seals, make sure that you describe your hub seals and not to be leaking. That's pretty much all you have to say. Oh yeah, point out if you have cab airbags, point those out, and check your exhaust back here. Make sure there's no soot around. Let's see if I can get that in there. Yeah, there's no soot around the exhaust pipe. Some of the older trucks have the exhaust pipes that go up the back of the cab. You got your work lights. Yeah, you got 2 red lights in the back and 2 white lights. You're supposed to have, like I said, you're supposed to have those DOT fenders. If you don't have those DOT fenders, you can get pulled over and get a fat ass ticket, so I'll get that taken care of today. Anyway, oh yeah, make sure that you say your tires are properly inflated to manufacturer's specifications, which is usually about 110 psi. You want to make sure you check those, and also you make sure you check your front tub seals as well. Make sure that they're not leaking. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Have a good day. Free Monday, bitches.